you to this call and say hello to everyone. And I hope you brought your markers, your crayons, your pencils, and paper to the call, because this is all about you. And it's about getting your creative juices flowing and bringing back a little wonder and joy into your life. During this call, I am going to give you an opportunity to invest further in yourself, to really explore the gaps between where you are creatively and where you would like to be. So before we get started, though, I want to take a moment to get centered. So I'd like you to sit comfortably and take a few deep breaths. Inhale, and with each exhale, let go of the worries and the tensions of the day. This next hour is just for you. So breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Now I want you to imagine you're sitting in a circle, looking quietly into the eyes of your neighbor, to the other people on this call. Notice their color, the shape, the light, the spirit, the compassion that shines forth from their being. This is a safe space to live your truth. This is a safe space to express your love, to share your enthusiasm, to take action towards your dreams, to walk your talk, to sing and dance to your music, to embrace your unique gifts. I want to share a story. I've been reading the book by Walt Wattles called Science of Getting Rich, and I read this page every day because this is how I feel about creativity. Once I saw a little boy sitting at a piano and vainly trying to bring harmony out of the keys. And I saw that he was grieved and provoked by his inability to play real music. I asked him the cause of his vexation, and he answered, "I can feel the music in me, but I can't make my hands go right." The music in him was the urge of original substance, containing all the possibilities of all life. All that there is of music was seeking expression through the child. God, the one substance, is trying to live and do and enjoy things through humanity. He is saying, I want hands to build wonderful structures, to play divine harmonies, to paint glorious pictures. I want feet to run my errands, eyes to see my beauties, tongues to tell mighty truth, and to sing marvelous songs, and so on. All that there is of possibility is seeking expression through men and women. God wants those who can play music to have pianos and every other instrument, and to have the means to cultivate their talents to the fullest extent. He wants those who can appreciate beauty to be able to surround themselves with beautiful things. He wants those who can discern truth to have every opportunity to travel and observe. He wants those who can appreciate dress to be beautifully clothed, and those who can appreciate good food to be luxuriously fed. He wants all these things because it is himself that enjoys and appreciates them. It is God who wants to play and sing and enjoy beauty and proclaim truth and wear fine clothes and eat good foods. It is God that worketh in you to will and to do, said Paul. I believe that we all hear whispers at different times in our lives, and those little whispers, tug at our heart. They want our attention. They come in our dreams oftentimes. And sometimes we're not ready for them, and sometimes we are. But think about it. How many times have you, as a creative person, had this urge to write a book, take an improv class, write a poem? You were on a vacation, and you had to take that picture. You just knew that one shot on your iPhone was going to capture everything. Maybe it was entering that contest. Maybe it's to work less or play more. Unfortunately, our dreams often get suffocated by the constraints of everyday living. If you're not careful, one day leads to another, and before you know it, years have gone by, and your creative dreams are buried under unfulfilling jobs, cleaning the house, or running errands. Then one day you wake up and say, who am I? Where is my passion? What is my purpose? I feel rudderless and adrift. What happened to my creativity? From the time I was a little girl, I had Miss Ray's art school. At 5 years old, I would gather my sister and her friends and teach them to draw. I wanted to be a famous painter. It was Rembrandt, Rubens, and Ray. But art wasn't taken very seriously in my household. It was a cute hobby. You could be a dilettante. In my high school, art was a club, not even a class. When I went to college, I was a painting major, and my parents kept saying, be a teacher, but I stood firm on that, and I said, I am going to be a painter. And I took this oil painting class, and this professor said to me, you are terrible. You have to get out of my class and give it up. I was devastated, but I didn't have the confidence to say, no, you're wrong. So I gave it up, and I became an art history major. And then I really didn't paint for almost 12 years. In my mid-30s, I was absolutely miserable. I felt depressed, alone, passionless. On the surface, I had everything: a loving husband, 2 wonderful kids, a bank account that allowed me to work part-time. I'd been in talk therapy for over 12 years. I was surviving, but I wasn't thriving. I was living a lie. I worried if you knew the real me, you would run for the hills. If you knew I had been sexually abused as a child, you would look at me as damaged goods, and you'd say, see, I knew something was wrong with her. I was ashamed. And I was so miserable. All I wanted to do was die. But I made a choice to live. And in that, I took control of my life and my healing. I began reading personal development books. I literally read 1,000 books over probably a 2-year period. And I did more than that. I wrote, I journaled, I answered every question in the book. I did gratitude and did wells. But the greatest healing began when I started to scribble my pain. I'd actually found a therapist who said, Ray, your art was a part of you for so long, it has to come back, and this will be your entree into healing. And she was right. So I started to scribble my pain. And as I did that, I noticed I started to feel better. It was this release because I finally had a way to express the pain and the sorrow and the anger that was inside of me. And from that point on, I dug deeper, and I realized I craved, I had to paint what was inside me. And I realized it brought me joy. So, for me, I understand. There are a lot of people who've been that way, who've experienced that part of their lives they put away. I'll do it when I get older. I'll do it when I retire. And there are still people who have experienced great love of creativity and have expressed it in many ways. And I'm so happy for them. But I know so many of you still put it on the back burner. So let's just talk a bit about the benefits of creative expression. It helps create balance and order. It gives you a sense of control over your external world. It can make something positive out of a loss, bad experience, or depression. You can maintain your integrity through your art. You can resolve conflicts. You can make your thoughts and feelings clear. And physically, you lower your blood pressure and your stress gets reduced. You release endorphins, which make you feel better. You feel energized, alive, happy, and successful. Now, my creativity is primarily expressed through painting, collage, photography, writing, and teaching. They've all played a prominent role in my life. It really has helped me clarify my values and my calling. It's provided me a valuable source of income. Mostly, though, a sense of joy, peace, and accomplishment. The manner in which you express your creativity may vary, but it is important that you pursue a creative outlet. Don't be afraid to attempt new forms of expression. You might think you can't draw a line with a ruler or write a cohesive sentence. Let me give you some hope. In high school, my teacher told me I was a terrible writer. I struggled to get a B. I've written several books, Art from My Heart in 2010, and in 2015 I published The Creative Activist, Make the World Better, One Person, One Action at a Time. And I actually won an award for it this year. I've also contributed 2 other books and a 3rd one this summer. And as for my paintings, even though my teacher told me I was terrible, they have been on display in places and private collections. Creativity is a form of discipline. It involves drills, exercises, prep work. It requires practice. A writer must write, a singer must sing. All too often we let our brain go on autopilot and fail to nourish our creativity. Kurt Vonnegut, the writer, said, "To practice every art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow." So we're going to make your soul grow. We have 3 secrets to boosting your creativity. The first secret is color. So if you want to be more creative, if you want to change your life, change your colors to go from drab to vibrant. Color is a part of every aspect of our lives, from the clothes we wear, to our furnishings, to food, to environment, to our mood. Have you ever been green with envy, or living in a black hole, or white with shock? Color affects us deeply. Color breathes life into our universe. It can invigorate us or calm us down. There is a science of color that has been used for years by advertisers, marketing specialists, and designers. Think about the restaurants you've been in that are red. Red is stimulating. It stimulates the appetite. Think about suites, bedrooms you've been in. Maybe they're calming, peaceful blue. So what is your favorite color to wear? What color is in your bedroom or office? My office actually is a light lavender. I love that. I love color. My bedroom is soft blue and my bathroom is aqua. I'm a colorist. So you also notice that if you look at my toenails right now, they're purple with silver glitter. So you can have fun with color. So I want you to think about how you can bring color into your life. Where can you add color into your wardrobe? Where can you add it into your furnishings, into your office? Imagine what it would feel like. Now, you may not be able to paint your office, but maybe you can bring a piece of artwork, a painting of the mountains, because it gives you peace, and the purple and the oranges of the background of the sky. Or it could be the water and the soft blues and greens. They calm your nerves. But think about what you can do to bring color into your life. I have to tell you about my friend Nancy, who has 4 different neon colors in her gray hair. Wherever we go, people stop and comment and say, "I wish I had the courage to do that." Color can give you confidence. Beth's mom died last year, and up until then, she's always worn these earthy, neutral, beige T-shirts. We recently had lunch, and she looked totally different. She said this year was transformative, and she needed to make some changes. She cut her hair, was wearing long, dangly earrings, a beautiful bright blue button-down shirt with a stand-up collar. She had so much more charisma and self-assuredness. She said she brought this shirt in every color, from orange sherbet to raspberry to purple. She loves who she is now, and it shows. She even stands taller and straighter. So how are you going to add color to your life? I'd like you to just write down a couple notes. I believe that deep within us, we have this intuitive understanding to know exactly what we need to live a more relaxed, authentic, and joyful life. And we need ways to drawing that out. And by using color, we can give our subconscious mind something to focus on, which helps us acquire the vital information we need. So I want you've got your colors in front of you, pick one color out of your crayons or markers and start scribbling with it for a minute or two. It can be any color, and if you want to, you can use your non-dominant hand. It doesn't matter in this case. I just want you to express yourself in color. What does it look like? What does it feel like to be that color? Have some fun with it. Maybe some images are emerging. Just notice it. Notice what you're noticing. Now, on another piece of paper, I want you to write down, to really free associate all the words, ideas, images that come to you when you look at your scribble. Now, today happens to be National Pink Day, so I'm going to say maybe pink. So it could be pink hearts, love, tenderness, bubblegum, puppy dogs, whatever that is for you. So just free associate for a minute and write down whatever comes to you. Next, I want you to write a little story called Once Upon a Time, using all the words you wrote down. Have fun with it. And if you don't want to write a story, write a poem. This is about you and your creativity. It's all started with color. Now, there's several ways you can use this and expand on the idea of scribbles. It could be a spark for a journal prompt. You can apply a question when you start to scribble. You could have a real clear intention. I would like an answer to this. I've been thinking about this. What are some possibilities? And just start scribbling, and then see what happens. And then start writing and journaling afterwards. So there's lots of ways to use scribbles. It's easy. It doesn't cost you anything but a box of crayons and some paper, and you can leave it at your desk at work. You can leave it at your desk at home. And it's something you can do with your family. It's a great way to have a dialogue. Everybody can share one scribble. Oftentimes I tell people to put up like a whiteboard in their kitchen, and every day somebody comes home and scribbles on it, and then you play a game and you name it. Scribbles are so easy, and it doesn't require any artistic ability. The second secret to boosting your creativity is curiosity. Walt Disney said, "We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious." And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. As Walt told it, his inspiration for Disneyland came from having a daddy stay with his girls. They would go to the carnival, and the girls would play the games or ride the carousel while Walt would sit and watch. As he looked about at other parents watching their kids, he thought, what if? What if there was a place where parents and children could play together as a family? Brian Grazer, producer of Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, has let his inquisitiveness run wild by pursuing what he refers to as curiosity conversations with hundreds of movers and shakers. He says the secret is to allow the conversation to flow freely. In his new book, A Curious Mind, The Secret to a Bigger Life, Grazer chronicles a lifetime of talking to strangers in an attempt to expand his own capabilities. I believe we all have stories, just like Brian, and I am curious about people. Much to my kids' chagrin as they were growing up, I would talk to the bus driver, the cashier, the waiter, and within 5 minutes, I would have their life story. But that's how I've interviewed over 150 leaders in the last 2 years. And I'm interviewing 21 more creative actors right now for a virtual summit. I'm curious, and I just look up people on the internet or books I've read, and I reach out, and I'm not attached to the results. So I allow myself to just be curious. What would they say? I would love to have a conversation with them. Now, I believe we are all born curious because we used to ask endless questions. We used to taste everything. Do you remember eating sand, bugs, and snowflakes? We made up stories and wondered why. We freely expressed ourselves in fun and exceptional ways. Eventually, over time, our teachers, the adults in our lives, started saying, the cow isn't purple, stop fidgeting in your seat, stop daydreaming, and there is really only one right answer. It is time, once again, to discover the creative edge and play in the realm of your imagination and intuition, to ask endless questions and to be curious. Indulge yourself in wonder. Ask high-caliber questions. Think about it. Ask the questions from a broader perspective. They give you insight and they create a learning space. So ask yourself, what would you love to do, be, or have? And take a few moments, and I'm going to go through a list of these, and I just want you to jot some notes down. What would you love to do, be, or have? When you have the time, write down at least 50 things. Now you're just jotting down a few. What would you like to learn or teach? So if you are at work, or if you're, or maybe you have grandchildren, what is it that you want to share that's just personal to you, that you just loved and thought about forever, that maybe you are an expert, but you really didn't ever tell anybody you were an expert at it? If you could speak to anyone in history, who would you love to talk with? And what is the question? What is the burning question that would make a difference in your life if you got it answered? If you were a superhero, what superpowers would you love to have? If you knew you could not fail, what would you do? If you knew you could make a film that would make the world better, what would the title and message be? If you had one more day left on Earth, who would you want to spend it with? If you knew you were creative and talented, what would you do? So is there anything else you're curious about? And if you just take a few moments, write down some ideas. Maybe there's something you want to learn. Maybe there's a new recipe you want to try or a new way to get to work. Curiosity doesn't have to be all the big questions. It can be how you live your life today, and that will make it easier. It should be about ease and effortlessness and fun. Sometimes our fears get the best of our creative potential. Sometimes we take too long to make a decision. We choose what feels comfortable and easy, what brings more money and less risk. Then, when we listen to our whispers, we have a different voice trying to sabotage our creative dreams. As a creative person, you are certainly familiar with that inner critic, that nagging voice. No, I can't do that. That will never work. I'm not that lucky. What makes you think you can do that? Shouldn't you have a degree for that? Another term for self-taught is not talented. Who would be interested in what I have to say? So who do you think you are? You are a fraud. You failed before. What makes you think this time is different? You're not a real artist. You get the idea. It takes resilience, tenaciousness, and courage to pursue your creative dreams, to go for it when your voice is saying, not enough, simultaneously. For years, Elle wanted to take sign language, but she was always worried what would people say? Could she keep up? She had been carrying around some old stories from childhood that kept her from going after her dream. And her voice was always, I'm not a good student, I'm stupid, I don't learn very quickly, I'm too old to try something new. We worked on it together, making note of old messaging from parents and teachers that are no longer serving her. So we went through each one by one, and noted who said it and is it really true. Then she developed a clear vision of what she wanted to achieve and why. 3 years from now, and it all worked out, and she was living the life she wanted, and sign language was easy. Who would she be? Who would she have to be? So she got to a place where she could register for the class. And as so often happens, when you are on your growing edge, more fear voices pop up. So as she started the class, the voice said, "You should be getting this quicker. What's wrong with you?" As my own personal coach says, it means you're on your growing edge and you are transforming, and it's a good thing, but it doesn't feel good in the moment. So working with Elle, we talked about it was a choice. It was a choice how she could feel. It's a choice and a perspective that we adopt. We can look at ourselves and feel ashamed or embarrassed, or we could say, hey, you know what? I'm being a role model for younger kids in the class to understand what tenaciousness is and a lifelong learner looks like. So she took a little bit of courage, but she went up to her teacher and she told her, please don't call upon me. I will raise my hand when I feel comfortable sharing. She finished the first round of classes, and she's actually taking it a second time now and having so much more fun. She's making new connections, she found a study partner, and she feels so more confident and alive. So when has fear kept you from pursuing a dream? Just think back in your mind and write down a couple notes. Another client of mine was working as a preschool teacher. She did it because her parents said that is a good profession, and she she didn't want to disappoint them. Plus, they paid for school, which so many of us have had that issue. But she was miserable. She was overweight. She never looked you in the eye. She was just unhappy. But once she made a decision to tell her parents she was going to culinary schools because she always wanted to be a baker, lo and behold, she lost 50 pounds while baking. She has a big grin on her face all the time. She started dating a wonderful guy. So, again, she had to look at what was keeping her from pursuing her dreams. Now, fears tend to come in fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of disappointing people or being rejected. Nobody wants to feel like a fool. Nobody wants somebody to say, oh, my God, that was horrible, and make fun of you, right? So what I want you to do now is to think about what are some of the things you're afraid of. Make a list. Now, it could be as simple as, and it's not simple, but asking for a raise, joining a dating service, telling someone you love them, taking a class, leaving a job you hate, leaving the kids with a babysitter. Maybe you want to lose 100 pounds. Sharing your writing with someone. Taking a vacation for 2 weeks and leaving the office for someone else to work. Maybe it is going back to school. So now I want you to look at that list, and next to it, I want you to consider and write down what are the fears surrounding that. What is the fear? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear you're not good enough? Is it fear of rejection? What will they say? Creative expression so often tends to be about not knowing the end at the beginning. Think about it. When you start a project, when you start a painting, do you always have the end in mind? Now, I used to think about that. I'd always have a reference, and now I start from a different place. I look at it as I'm just going to play. But so many of us, worry about that, so we don't do anything. So we don't sit down and we don't write that first line of our book. We don't do it because, well, what would happen if? What if I failed? What if people thought I was stupid? What if? And that is only going to keep you stuck. Recently, I was in California, and I had the privilege of being with my granddaughter, who's 2.5, and the other one was 4.5, and they're taking their first swimming lessons. And I watched the process, about putting your face in the water, letting go of the side, floating on your back with the teacher holding her, getting her comfortable. And the teacher said to the younger one, "Go jump off the diving board." Well, there was hysterics. She started to cry. And, "Mommy, Mommy," and shook her head vehemently, "No, no, no." And a few days later, she got up to the edge of the board and looked down. And again, it looked dark and deep, and she backed off. But a few days later, she was jumping off with a big grin on her face. Successful people feel the fear, but they don't let them stop them from taking action. For 30 years, I had this mantra from Susan Jeffers: feel the fear and do it anyway. And I know trying something new is really scary. But think about it. Sometimes it's about asking for help. It's hard to ask for help, right? I mean, it is hard, and that's the best way. Now, I told you in the beginning that I was going to just make a short offer here and tell you about a program that I'm putting together, and because I believe in coaching. I'll tell you a little story about me and what happened over the last few years. So, as I said earlier, I've been sexually abused. And in 1993, I was going to write the first memoir of its type that included my artwork, my poetry, my journaling, and my story. And I was so excited. And I took it to a conference. It was called Body and Soul Conference. And the premier personal development people at the time, and I showed it to them. And they said to me, "Your story's not enough." I was like, oh my. But I said, okay, I'm upset and I'm unhappy, but I know how to write a questionnaire. I have a master's in urban planning, and I can go back and do that. So I actually did. I went back and I wrote this questionnaire. It was like 11 pages, and I sent it out to people. And the book was about surviving to thriving, and that was the message. And I had this theory or hypothesis that people would heal more quickly and make choices if they embrace spirituality, creativity, body work, gratitude, and forgiveness. Those were the big themes that people were not talking about at that point. And so I got back all this beautiful information. I had 150 respondents, and the material was so rich. And it really did validate my theory. I was like, wow, this is very cool. So, and the stories were beautiful. There was one woman who painted her pain of being raped, and she took her artwork to prison. And she showed it to several rapists, and they cried, she said, because it was the first time anybody had actually shown them what their effect was, what their actions caused. Another woman talked about she rehabbed homes. That was her vocation, her vocari. And with each home and every room, when she ripped up the floorboards, she was rehabbing a part of her soul. I love these stories, and I was just like, wow, I was so honored that people shared this material with me, and I was going to write the book. So I'd start to write the book. I hand tabulated everything with little hash marks because there was no computer at that point in my life. And every day I'd start to write, and then those voices would come in. Who do you think you are? Why would anybody listen to you? If your story isn't enough, well, then you're not enough, and so on and so on. And so I tried to write that book for years, and I wish I could say I did it, but I didn't. I've contributed to other people's books on healing from sexual abuse with creativity, but I never wrote my own. And fast forward 20 years later, I'm hearing a whisper, and it says, interview 100 leaders. Why should I interview 100 leaders? Why? I'm not a leader. And then I sat back and I examined those voices. Is that true? And the reality was it was not true. I am a leader. I've been a community activist for 40 years. I have led teams. I'm an entrepreneur. I have done amazing work in the world. I have leadership skills. And so, of course, I'm going to write this book. So I began interviewing people I knew, who I'd worked with, and then I actually reached out to Mary Rockwood Lane, one of my heroes. She had started the first arts and medicine program in a hospital. And then from there it was, well, who do you know? And that's how I wrote my book, or started to write my book, I should say. So the difference between 20 years ago and now, I have a coach. And for the last 3 years, I've invested almost $30,000 with this woman. I'll say, I took it out of savings, and I know it was a lot, but boy, the gifts of working with someone in a small mastermind experience has been phenomenal for me. And I appreciate having a container of support. It was so interesting because I had so much material. After you interview 100 people, and I also had a radio show, and I was interviewing more people, I had thousands of pages of transcripts, and so I'm writing 3 books at once. And so she said, stop, go back, what's your vision? And we, pick a pony and write it. And so I started writing The Creative Activist because it's something that touches on every aspect of my life, because I would say creativity and service saved my life. So we worked on a vision. Who am I serving? It wasn't just about the money. Yes, it's about making money and things like that, and notoriety and respect and all those pieces, but it was more about who am I serving? How can I make a difference with my gifts and talents? Going back to that first thing by Wallace Wattles, what has God given to me? What is that whisper in my soul that is meaning to be expressed? And so we worked backwards, and we came up with, all the pieces that I needed to do to get this book written. And so within a year, I sat down, I wrote the outline, I found a publisher, I wrote the entire book, I went through the editing process, I got endorsements from people I've been looking forward to, I got my dream person, which is Mary Morrissey. She is a personal development person I've worked with in a large group. I didn't know her personally, but she wrote the foreword for my book. So every piece of my experience became richer, stronger, and I kept sticking to that vision. And there were times when it didn't work, or I didn't work it. It was sort of like, life got in the way. Unfortunately, my mom got sick, and she died, and so things had to be postponed and changed. But I kept going forward, and within a year, everything that was on my vision came true. And part of my vision said, I'm an award-winning author. And this year, my book won an award for inspiration. So I believe in the power of coaching. That's a long way to say it, but I needed to tell you my story. So I really want to offer my services to you, because I want to be your partner in believing, because we all need that. Every day we need that. And so think about it. Who is your partner in believing? Who is there with you every day, who's in your corner, who is suggesting to you to go for the adventure? Or is it the person, or do you have the person in your life who's saying, well, you didn't do it that time, why do you think you're going to do it this time? Or, get realistic. So who's there? Is somebody fostering your dreams, or is somebody putting a hold on it and saying, oh, let's keep the status quo? So let me just tell you about the 4-week program. And for 4 weeks, I'm going to lead you and fellow participants through some loving self-exploration over the phone, just like we're doing today. We might be getting into some visuals. I have to work on the technology for myself. And we're going to dive into the week's topics, and we're going to do some laser coaching. But every day for 30 days, you're going to receive writing prompts, inspirational quotes, and easy creative activities in your email. Each activity should take about 15 minutes a day. You deserve to take that time for yourself. And then every week we will have a call, and we're going to dive deeper into the lessons that I'm going to send you and your creative activity, and we're going to answer questions. So if you're struggling, if that voice of doubt is coming up, we're going to, in a safe place, explore, play, and experiment, and you're going to be able to step out of your comfort zone. So again, each week you're going to get journal prompts and activities for 30 days, which on my website is called Discover the Creative Edge, and you can purchase it as a standalone program for $147. But if you want the 4 weeks of coaching to go with it, the additional resources to nourish and deepen the process, a recording each time, the investment's $497. Week 1 is what is creativity. We're going to define it, we're going to explode the myth, and we're going to put your imagination into action. Week 2 is going to be the creative person, making creativity a habit, identifying and coping with fear, how to tame your inner critic. Week 3 is designing a creative environment, creating a fail-forward attitude at home and at work, how to find your own inspirational space, and the power of ceremony and ritual. And week 4, the creative process, the steps to inspiration. What is your creative vision, and how to connect, collaborate, and mastermind. So this 4-week program will hold the key to living to your full creative potential and going from stuck to unstoppable. It is going to free your creative spirit. Develop the confidence you need to make creative leaps. You're going to overcome barriers to inspiration and innovation at work. You're going to tame your inner critic, experience more fun, wonder, and joy. You're going to open the doorway to spirit. You're going to live more authentically and have more energy and vitality. Again, think about it. The Olympics are coming up very soon, and no athlete would consider going without a coach, nor would a football team, go on the field without a group of coaches. I really feel that you deserve a coach. You need somebody who is going to help you clarify your dreams, visions, and goals. They're going to help you when fear pops up, and it always does. They are going to help you confront your ghosts. That's what coaches do. That's what I do. I'm going to give you the tools and techniques to identify and eliminate patterns that no longer serve you so that you can live in alignment with your values and stay focused on your creative genius. So now I want to go back to courage a little bit and talk about that a little bit more before we end the call. It takes courage to ask for help. It takes courage to create a bold vision. It takes courage to fail and get up and try again. It takes courage to be authentic, to not care what other people think. It takes courage to enter the unknown. It takes courage to address your inner critic. This is one of my favorite little poems from the French poet Apollinaire. "Come to the edge," he said. They said, "We are afraid." "Come to the edge," he said. They came, he pushed them, and they flew. So right now I'd like to have you draw yourself flying, because you deserve to spread your wings and fly. Take a few moments and draw yourself. This will be your courage talisman. Think about it. We all need one. Put it on your, put it on your desk. Put it on your phone. This will be something you can carry with you as a symbol of you taking flight and sharing your creative dreams with the world. Do you have big flapping wings? Are you soaring above the sky? Do they have angel wings? Maybe that's what your wings look like. Maybe you have an angel flying with you. I love the images of wings and flying. Every day I'm outside, and when I walk my dog, I really love the birds. I love the sound. I love to watch them soar. That's freedom to me. That's courage. If you have any questions about tonight's call, about the programs I offer, working with me individually or as part of a group, you can reach me at ray@thewinningadventure.com or 847-948-0315. One final quote, and this is from Mr. Rogers. As human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have. Something inside that is unique to all time. It is our job to encourage each other to discover that uniqueness and to provide ways of developing its expression. And I wish you a wonderful good night and the ability to develop its expression. Again, this is Ray Luskin, and thank you so much.